Council, let's go. All right, welcome to tonight's regular scheduled meeting of the Johnson County Council, Monday, April 12th, 2021. First order of business, roll call, please.
Rob Henderson,
Here.
Melinda Griesmer,
Here.
Pete Ketchum,
Here.
Jim Ison,
Here.
John Myers,
Here.
Ron Deere,
Here.
Jonathan Myers.
Wonderful, thank you. We do have a quorum. Pete, if you would lead us in the invocation, please.
Sure. Everyone would take a moment to pray, please. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this opportunity to meet here tonight as a council. We pray for thy presence and guidance as we listen to the proposals and information from our department heads and elected officials. We pray that we're able to make appropriate decisions. And we pray for a speedy end to the pandemic and safe travel for everyone home tonight. And we pray for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pete. If you would, and if you are able, please stand to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on. Tonight's agenda, prior to approval, we do have two amendments. Under routine matters, B2 is in boy 2, 2A, that the transfer from account should begin with 9163, not 9136. And then under section C, items C and 4 have been pulled from tonight's agenda. So with those amendments, I would be entertain a motion.
Which ones will go?
Items C4 and C5.
Move to amend the agenda. Second.
I have a motion from Ron, a second from Jim. Any further discussion?
I wanted to talk about the minutes from last month. They're missing some information. Do we do that in this section?
We'll do that in the consent agenda coming up next.
Okay.
Thank you. So, motion from Ron, a second from Jim. Any further discussion about the tonight's agenda?
If we want something to be discussed further, would this be the time to do that also?
On the consent agenda?
Yeah.
We would pull it out at that time.
Because we're doing two actions on the consent agenda, correct? One is to pull the 4 and 5, and then we have anything additional.
No, right now we're on the approval of tonight's agenda. So the agenda has been presented with amendments to change the one general ledger number under B2 and to pull from the agenda C4 and C5. So we're now seeking a motion. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay. All right. I think
So any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you. Next up, public comments. At this time, if you would like to, anyone from the public would like to speak to the council, feel free to approach the podium and state your name, address. Or anybody on Zoom world, Chris, that wants to speak up, we're good. All right. All right, seeing no one approach or the podium and no one in Zoom world want to speak, we will close public comments. Next up, section B of our agenda, routine matters consent agenda. So everything under item B would be taken unanimously unless there is something that a member of council would like to pull out for discussion.
I'd like to pull out number C2 and B6 and C2.
Okay, C C2 is under the salary ordinance
I'm
amendment.
looking at the wrong.
So you're just asking that B6 be removed from the consent agenda for discussion?
Yes.
All right. Any other items? Linda, you mentioned minutes.
Yeah, there's the minutes left out from last month, left out information.
Okay.
You want to talk about it right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, at the
We'll go
end
ahead.
of last month's meeting, before the meeting closed, I, gave out some congratulations for Johnson County residents who were given some very lofty awards for the state of Indiana, and the minutes didn't bother to list their names except for one, and I kind of felt like it was a disservice and kind of actually disrespectful for those people that I acknowledged. So I wanted to be sure and get those names in the minutes. Do you need those names again? I'm happy to read them off to you.
Yes, the meeting did not get recorded, and I didn't get them all wrote down, so.
Okay, so I'm happy to tell you what they are again, because this is Johnson County residents and they deserve to be acknowledged.
You can just give those to us in writing if you would like, and we'll make sure they're put in as an addendum to the minute.
Okay, I'll go ahead and say them though. Grace Gilman, Carol Toomey, both won the Sagamore were given the Sagamore of the Wabash for their years of service to the state of Indiana. Center Grove High School won state championship for an undefeated football season. They're 6A state champs. Coach Eric Moore was the Indiana State Coach of the Year for 2020, All-American Bowl coach. Carson Steele was 2020 Indiana State Mr. Football. And Ethan Moore, Indiana State Boys Swimming Champion in the 100 freestyle for 2021. These are our residents, and so they need to be congratulated. Thank you guys. You make me very proud.
Thank you, Melinda. And I would just state that it was an honest omission and there was no intention of disrespect by anybody here or the auditor's office in the preparation of those minutes. So I hope you understand that. So with that, we will move on to, we're going to pull out for discussion. We'll do that now. Item B6, Sheriff.
And 7, I'm sorry, B6 and 7. I didn't have to note next to us, B6 and 7.
Okay. Do we need to, I guess we don't have to redo the agenda for that. So we will pull out items B6 and B7 at the request of Councilman Deere for discussion from tonight's consent agenda. Let's go ahead and have that discussion. That would be sheriff firearms training and the JAG grant, please.
Good evening, Dwayne Burgess, Johnson County Sheriff.
Ron, go ahead and address your questions.
Well, this may be just me understanding the processes again, but the questions I have on both 6 and 7 is that I'm still trying to understand additional appropriation as opposed to transfer of money, bringing it from one place to the other. And if I understand this correctly, this is asking for additional appropriations in both those items of money that was not budgeted.
No, money is there. We're just wanting to move from firearms training to the travel and training, the $4,000 from the firearms fund. That's what we're wanting to do. And then the second one that we have there on the list is a JAG grant that we enter with the Greenwood Police Department and Franklin Police Department to purchase equipment. We're going to use that amount of $83.72 to purchase radars, printers, and other items, but we've gone over and we'll find to pay the excess of that money that we were given in that JAG grant. We'll find that in our budget to pay that excess that we're spending.
Okay, so the item that we received doesn't say from and to. Is that my confusion, or is it something I'm just not understanding?
I'm sorry, the additional appropriation on firearms training is the additional appropriation is for the training expense for the remainder of the year to train people. I'm sorry.
So Ron, that's its own fund, and I don't think it's part of the normal budget process. So whenever he comes, he can only use it for specific things, so it's an additional appropriation. So basically, just permission to spend from that fund. Cash on hand and to a line item to spend.
We have that money available there.
Again, this is just on me, that when I look at, I'm trying to still understand that it sounds like we're asking for more money, but we're not asking for any more money that was already budgeted, correct?
Correct. It's there in our,
It's there in the budget.
Yes.
Sheriff, can you tell me where the money come from?
Gun permits and gun permits and other items that we'll do within the department. Like we have a record fund that we'll use to buy vests, but that's coming from our firearms permits.
And the JAG grant again is coming from,
That is from the federal grant, the government. That money has been allocated to us, the $8,372. We just need the permission to purchase those items.
Okay. Any further questions for Sheriff on those two items?
I'm just trying to avoid how to understand that in the future when it's written that way. Can somebody help me understand how I would know that? 'Cause it looks like we're asking for more money.
How about if we, unless there are a question about that specifically, how about we move on through the consent agenda and Ron, maybe it's best for us to have that, unless others have that question or concern, we can talk about that either offline or at the end of the meeting, just to keep it moving. Okay. So without further discussion, I would entertain a motion for items B6 and B7.
I would approve as presented.
Second.
A motion from John Myers and a second from Jonathan Myers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thanks,
Thank you.
Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, for the questions. So with that, the rest of items under the consent agenda will be taken with a blanket motion. So if there are anybody inclined to make a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda, I would entertain.
Well, I have a similar question on C2.
So item C is not item B is
Sorry, I was looking at-
consent agenda.
Let's drop the page.
Yes.
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion from Jonathan Myers, a second from John Myers. Any further discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you. We are through the consent agenda, and Ron, we will have a conversation about
I'm sorry, I was just, well, one of them was at the top of the second sheet, and I was thinking it was under the C.
Yep. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the next section of tonight's agenda, section C, salary ordinance amendments, additional appropriations, reductions, and transfers. First up, innkeeper's tax collection.
I am Ken Kosky, Director of Tourism. Just wanted to give you a brief update on what's going on in the tourism world. The visitor center has already been very busy this spring. We're getting as many as 20 people a day during the weekday and as many as 50 on Saturdays. We're on pace to have our activities guide, which I gave you a copy of, requested more than 3,000 times this year. Our first of several billboards is up on I-65 at the Franklin exit. You'll see some of those throughout the entire stretch of I-65 as the spring and summer roll along. We're also doing our usual digital advertising campaign and some print and some other mediums.
I'm sorry. Where are the billboards again?
So there's already one at I-65 and the Franklin exit if you're heading southbound, and there'll be further ones. You'll see them if you're exiting to Greenwood or exiting to Franklin. We're focusing kind of on those two exits. That's where the majority of our restaurants and hotels are. We've received already 3 grant requests, so we're continuing to fund projects like new festivals, actual new attractions, and we hope to partner with Johnson County Parks on a new attraction that we'll tell you more about as soon as we finalize that. That'll be exciting for the county. And other than that, just here for our quarterly appropriations, so we can continue the work that we're doing.
So, Ken, I had a question when Amy sends us information about the various funds, the 7304 fund, the Innkeeper's Tax Fund, it showed year-to-date receipts of 636,796. Does that sound about right? Or is that,
That's what's cumulative,
so the current period was about $5,600? Does that sound?
No, so we've been receiving approximately 40,000 a month in innkeeper's tax. So that's what we would have collected year to date.
Okay.
I don't know what those figures represent.
It'd be the total cash.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think the
Is there
600,000,
one quarter you didn't come get your appropriation?
what's that?
Is there one quarter you didn't come get your appropriation?
Right, our last appropriation of the year, we decided not to take. We decided to cut spending as revenue was coming in, so.
that makes sense. Thank you for that. And I would suspect, is based on just looking at STAR reports and various things, occupancy has been down due to COVID, but are you seeing, or are you hearing from owners, hotel owners, are we starting to see a pickup in occupancy?
So, last year, January and February were the only 2 months pre-COVID. So we actually set records. Our hotel revenue was up about 8% each of those months. So we were kind of worried now that we're kind of still in COVID that we would see a drop, but we're actually dead even with where we were last year in January and February. So I think people are ready to get back out and travel safely. I think one of two things: you're either vaccinated or you have no interest in being vaccinated and feel safe to travel. So I think that combination bodes well for the travel industry this year.
Thank you. Any further questions for Ken with respect to his quarterly appropriation?
I'll move to approve item C1.
Second.
I have a motion from Jim, a second from Pete to approve item C1 as presented. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you all.
Next up, the Clerk's Perpetuation Fund.
Good evening, Trina McLaughlin, Johnson County Clerk. I am here to request an additional appropriation out of our clerk's perpetuation fund of $45,000. This fund is a non-reverting fund. It can only be used for specific things. It can't be used for paying certain things. It can be used for paying a salary if that person is doing clerk's perpetuation work. So what we are looking to do is, we have a lot of rolls of microfilm. What we wanting to currently do is we have 554 rolls that we want to start with, and we want to make that film and make it digital, so it's easier access for our employees, for our customers. Typically, it can take up to 10 minutes if we want to pull a roll of microfilm and have to look up something. If we digitize it, we can have it pulled up and taken care of for our customers in 2 minutes or less.
I'll get it out. Has your office utilized this vendor before, this IRA group?
I have not. I did get a lot of recommendations from them, and from several different clerks. I think they've done some work for our county auditor in 2020. And other than that, locally, I don't know anyone.
Did you receive more than one bid or?
No, no.
Well, I know I, for one, have appreciated the clerk's use of the perpetuation fund to help in any way possible offset general fund expenses. So I want to thank you for that. And any further conversation or discussions, questions for?
Yeah, I've got a process question again. So this money is there. We're not additionally appropriating any money here outside, because there was only 2,000 in that line item as I read it, but this money's coming from someplace else.
Yes, it's from our perpetuation fund, which whenever we have a new case filing, we receive $5 from every case goes into that fund. Whenever we do sheriff service, $1 of every piece of service that they serve on a person, we receive that dollar. So the money just accumulates. I do pay a full-time employee out of that, and then any supplies that I can buy for that part of the office, I can purchase under there also.
So Amy, when I was looking for this, I just wasn't looking the right place to see what's there.
So several of the non-reverting funds are budgeted during budget time, but they have their own cash in those funds. So the department heads don't necessarily budget all of their cash. They kind of set a budget within that fund, what they think they're gonna need, and then throughout the year, if they need more, they have cash on hand in that fund. So they're coming to you to ask for permission to spend it in a line item. So
Right,
that's
so the-
additional appropriation, that's how it's.
All right, so the question I'm asking is, when I look to see how much is there, so where do I look to find it? It wasn't on there.
Well, the fund has $145,831 in it.
Okay, I was looking at a line item as opposed to the total fund.
My guess is that if you were to look at the approved budget for professional services for this fund, it would be something much less than 45,000. And that's why,
It was 2,000.
yeah, and that's why Trina's coming back to ask for an appropriation.
Out of the bigger,
Yes, into, for this purpose of professional services.
okay, bear with me.
Unlike maybe what Dwayne was doing, where he was taking, it was already there, and he was just moving it from one line item to another line item.
But this is there, it's just in a larger,
It's just,
30 days.
it's in the cash.
yeah,
It's not in a line item to spend. She has 2,000, but she needs
Right.
45 more. So that's why she's here.
45 more appropriated that is already there. We're not asking
The
for
cash.
more money.
Correct.
That's all I'm getting at, we're not asking.
In 2020, I think that we probably collected about 36,000 something for the year. So every year we collect
Okay.
at least that amount.
Still learning.
Oh, this is all good. I'm suspecting you're probably getting at, we're not going to the taxpayer to ask money for this. This is.
That's the question.
Yeah.
When I went to the budget, it said
Yeah.
$2,000, and then I look here and it says 45.
So as a non-reverting fund, it's not taxpayer supported in the sense of it's not part of your property tax or income tax or anything like that. It's a fee.
Outside the, it's
Yeah.
outside the levy, it's its
outside
own
the
cash.
levy.
Okay, all right.
And then
Thank
just for further information, and I'd ask Trina to verify this. You have total control over that, right? As to what it should be spent for.
Correct,
Per statute.
per statute.
Yes. Thank you. But my only final comment would be, I'm sure county legal will take a look at the contract and make sure it's all on the up and up. Okay?
Okay.
Very good. So it already motioned and approved, right? Did we get that far?
No.
No,
I'll
okay.
make the first motion.
Thank you. We have a motion from Melinda, a second from Jonathan Myers. Any further discussion for Trina? Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
You're not approved. Thank you, Trina. Okay. Next up, item C3, Title II Community Corrections Juvenile. I think we have Lori coming to us via Zoom.
Yeah, good evening.
Hi.
Hi. Lori Myers, Juvenile Community Corrections Director, and just seeking permission to appropriate and accept the funding that we have been awarded through the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute through a Title II grant.
Okay. So there's the request for the appropriation, but then I think, is there also a request for an hourly rate of $15? How am I reading that, Amy? Is that a separate or in addition to?
In addition to.
Okay.
The
Employees are, for how many employees?
I'm sorry,
How many employees?
this will fund one part-time employee at the rate of $15 per hour that works specifically doing the intensive outpatient program that this grant funded.
So this is just for one person?
The $5,760 is a part-time rate for one person.
But, okay.
And with that, the related FICA, the supplies, professional services, the travel and training and office equipment, kind of all related, itemized in her memo to us regarding how the grant funds need to be used or recommended to be used.
Yes, those expenses or those line items are specific to the intensive outpatient program that we requested support through this Title II grant. So they're very specifically designated items that were approved by Indiana Criminal Justice Institute.
Thank you.
Is this employee a long-standing employee, or is this, so this is just for one person, you're wanting to give them a pay raise, 33% pay raise?
No, there's no pay raise. The program requires 2 staff people to work. The full-time person is on my staff, and then there's a second person, instructor. That's what this person's doing. There's no raise. Our hourly rate for all across the board for our part-time people is $15 an hour. There's no increase or additional people.
Very good. Anything else for Lori? All right.
Motion to approve C3 as presented, and thank you.
Second.
Program.
Second. Motion from Jonathan Myers, a second from Ron. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you, Lori. Congrats on the grant.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Items C4 and C5 have been pulled from tonight's agenda. So we move on to item C6, which is supplemental adult probation services.
Mr. President, I'm going to abstain from this one.
Thank you, Jim. Please let the records reflect that Jim is abstaining from this vote.
Hi, I'm Angela Morris, Chief Probation Officer. My request tonight is that the hourly rate on the 144 be increased to $20 an hour versus what it is at 15 right now. I'm not asking for any additional money, just for the rate to increase.
This is the fee fund, correct?
Correct.
Very good. So, very good. No new funding, just a request, and the request is retroactive to April 8th,
Yes, please.
2021. Okay. Any further questions for Angela?
I have a question, and maybe it's for John, or James rather. Is this a position that was in the salary study?
No, this is a part-time position. I don't think probation was in the salary study because they're all state mandated salaries.
Correct, but this position specifically is, we were able to hire a part-time field officer. And so the field officer was included in the salary study. And this would be, it would coincide with what the salary study recommended for the current field officer that I have.
So you're bringing the salary up to what the study says it should be?
I'm bringing the hourly rate up to what the salary would be if he were full-time.
Okay, so make sure I'm understanding, it wasn't included in the salary study because it was a part-time position, but you're equating it to what a full-time probation officer,
Field officer
makes, so there's equity between a part-time and a full-time person who's doing the same job, will be paid similar salary, correct?
Correct.
They're getting benefits too. A part-time person's getting the same benefits as a full-time?
No, not at all. They
Okay,
don't get any benefits.
none at all.
Correct. In terms of like insurance and is that the kind of benefits yeah, they don't get any of those.
So we got part-time people not getting benefits?
Correct.
Your department, part-time is what, 30 hours, 32 hours?
His specifically, is gonna be 25 hours a week.
Is there a set, Commissioner, is there a set hours for part-time? Is it 28, 30?
Has to be an average of 29
Average
or
29,
less.
less.
Is this person not working because of a conflict of scheduling or?
He works part-time also at the coroner's office, and so we worked with county attorney, and the elected coroner so that his hours won't go over 37 and a half.
Oh, okay. So you're just saying for his role with you, though, you wanted the increase for him?
Correct.
Anything else for Angela?
Do you have the total, I've got somebody asking here, do you have the total annual cost of the raise?
We have somebody asking.
Melinda, I don't know that that's appropriate to be fielding questions on
Okay.
text.
Well,
Folks who
maybe
may
I
or
just
may
have
not
him-
be, yeah, if they want to, they can participate through
Yeah.
Zoom.
Okay,
Absolutely, yeah. Anybody out there on Zoom have questions? All right, thank you. Thank you, Angela. Anything else for Angela at this moment? All right, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item C6 as presented.
Have a motion from Jonathan Myers, a second from John Myers. The motion would include retro to April 8th, 2021 per the agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Next up, Community Correction Adult Grant.
Good evening. I'm appear by Zoom. Can you guys see me?
Yep, we can see you and hear you. Thank you, Jason.
Jason Cranny, Johnson County Community Corrections Executive Director. The first item of agenda is to appropriate some of the carryover that we have from, actually, it was 2018. DOC granted us the ability to be able to use some of that money to be able to purchase additional drug screens. We are asking to be able to move those from office supplies to professional services so that we can make that purchase.
Okay, do we want to take any preference from the council to take one at a time or take all three of Jason's requests collectively?
I'll move to approve that particular one at this time.
We have a motion from Pete for item C7. Second from John Myers. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, C7 continues. Jason, we'll go on to item C8.
Thank you. This is to move our assistant director to the CTP fund, which we have been building up in Reservoir so that we can have enough to be able to support the salary. It's up over 150,000 right now. We believe that with the continuing CTP funds that are deposited into it, that we should be able to support that through the CTP fund for at least 5 to 7 years. So this is not coming from the general fund. For those of you that may not know what CTP is, it is a community transition program so that people who are coming from the Department of Corrections, they have a little bit of time to be able to acclimate to being released, to be able to find a job, get insurance, get any kind of health or mental health treatment that they need before we're releasing them into the community. DOC pays us a stipend to be able to watch these people while they are making that transition into it. That's where this fund comes from. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Jason, what was the name of the agency that provides the stipend?
DOC, Department of Corrections.
Okay. Thought I heard something else. Thank you. And just a note, as the agenda states, this is a request retroactive to March 25th, 2021.
That's correct. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I have a motion from Jim Eisen, a second from Pete Ketchum. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Your other item, grants, indirect community corrections adult.
That is correct. We were fortunate enough to be able to participate in the drug-free Johnson County grant this year. We were awarded $5,000. This is to establish a line item so that we are able to spend those funds.
Very good. Any questions for Jason about that grant? Okay.
I'll move to approve as presented.
The motion from Pete, a second from John Myers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much.
All right, that concludes that section of tonight's agenda. We move on to item D, other business. First up, Johnson County Public Library. This is a 2021 update presentation.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And Shane, I've got one for you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Littner, the Library Director for the Johnson County Public Library, here with my annual update on all things with the library. What we're passing out tonight is an April program guide, and inside is our annual 2020 year in review. And like other organizations, our library had to show resiliency last year and continue to do so, navigating through this pandemic. We optimized our curbside service, and people are still using that every day. We developed a delivery service program that's still ongoing, so anyone who's homesick or in quarantine, they're able to request materials. We will deliver them to their house and then pick them up again for anybody homebound. That's been really popular. And of course, we have pivoted to online programming, but we're so glad to say that we're finally getting back to some in-person programs again and doing lots of outdoor programs now that it's getting nice outside. Just this past weekend, we had Project Prom where we gave away 100 prom dresses. There were lots and lots of girls there, probably 250, 300 people there, and I think we gave away 8 suits to some guys too, so that they can attend their prom. It's a fun program we do every year. We're so glad we're able to do it again this year. 2021 has been a year we really looked forward to. March 23rd, we held our ceremonial groundbreaking for the new Park Pleasant branch. That will be opening probably in February 2022. And some of the features of that location that we're really excited about are the dynamic and flexible meeting room spaces, lots of study room spaces, which came up time and time again in our visioning sessions with residents. And some of the other highlights, we'll have a dedicated teen center, which the current branch does not have. We'll have a robotics learning lab to help with STEAM learning throughout the whole, and that will be available to anybody in Johnson County. We'll have an adult learning center with expanded services for both people needing basic education and also English conversation skills. And we'll be creating a dynamic early childhood learning center to prepare kids for kindergarten for the Park Pleasant school system. Our library foundation will also be fundraising for a nature trail, a community garden, and public art for the new library. Some upcoming programs of interest. We just started on April 1st, a walk to Mordor. So if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, you get both literacy and fitness by getting your walks in, and luckily, an Earth mile is equal to 10 Lord of the Rings miles because it's 1,779 miles to walk to Mordor. So 179 miles, how did you figure that?
Yeah.
Just sign up, you can still join us. We offer more than 100 programs per month. A few fun ones coming up on April 27th. We have an expert on national parks who'll be doing a presentation. And I know lots of folks have been choosing national parks as their destinations for vacation. So if you know anybody headed to any of them, just let them know about our program. May 4th, we're doing a basic blues guitar lesson. I mean, we just are all over the map when it comes to programs. May 17th starts our Explore Summer Reading Program. That's where we try to get the entire community to read 3 million minutes and celebrate learning throughout summer when school's out. And we have tons of digital resources. You can go to our website and just see how many we have, but we're really excited about one we just added this past month. It's called Cloud Library Newsstand, and it's 6,500 magazines that you can download as many as you want and keep them for as long as you want. And those work great on a phone if you're at the doctor's office waiting for an appointment. They work great on tablets, or you can even use them on their computer. But 6,500 wonderful magazines, popular titles on any subject from hunting to getting married. So pretty cool stuff. And if you don't have a library card, just give me an email or give me a call. I'm happy to set you up with one so you can use some of the resources at the library. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
I have one. If you have a Greenwood card, with what you just said, can you get those magazines with a Greenwood card?
That's the tricky one, right? So we do reciprocal borrowing with Greenwood Public Library for everything that's on a bookshelf. So like audiobooks, DVDs, books. But the online resources, they're tricky. They don't like reciprocal borrowing. So in order to do that, you have to get something called a plaque card, which is a state library card. and it's $65. And it actually lets you get a library card and use all the resources at any public library in the whole state of Indiana. But you can't.
But you can't have a Johnson,
Yeah.
can't have a Johnson County Public Library card and get those.
Yeah, so we have 3 library districts in Johnson County. If you live in Greenwood's Library District, you can access their online resources.
Right.
But yeah, and you need a reciprocal borrowing card, but just not for the online stuff.
So make
And
sure, if I heard you correctly, if I live in Greenwood, I can't access what you just said unless I pay $65 to the state.
You have to look on the map though, because like White River Township is also in the city of
Well, yeah.
Greenwood. So there's lots of Greenwood addresses who do live in our library district,
No.
right? But if you live in, if you live in Greenwood Library District, you have to use their online resources. And that's pretty much the way it is at every public library in the state of Indiana. Because of the vendors, like the people we purchase, they will allow us to let reciprocal borrowers access those materials.
But programs,
Absolutely. Programs, books on our shelves, movies on our shelves, our board games, ukuleles, whatever, you can check out with a reciprocal card.
on hard items
Yep. On our physical items, that's a great way to put it.
and programs.
And programs, yeah.
All right, and this is an April guide, are the monthly guides online?
Yeah, May will be coming out in probably next week. But you can go to our website and click on events and you'll see May events listed. Mhm. Good question.
Very good. Lisa, thank you for the informative update. I love the detail. You have a lot going on. Wish you and your staff the best as you head into the spring season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, other business, item D2, the Johnson County Redevelopment Commission, the 2020 annual report. I believe Sheena may speak to this. Also, Kevin Walls is the vice president of that commission, and I'm the president of that commission. If anyone would like a question or have a question.
Right. This is Sheena Johnson, Johnson County Attorney. There's not a lot of substance to your RDC report this year. It's for the calendar year 2020. You can see this is what's required by the DLGF. Every year we have to file it with the commissioners and council. And we decided the best way to do that, memorialize that, is come to a meeting to get acceptance.
Thank you. Any questions as to the 2020 annual report? Is this an action item or do we acknowledge receipt?
I will vote to accept it.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to accept the 2029 Redevelopment Commission report as 2020. What did I say? 20. Strike that. I make a motion, or I would entertain a motion to accept the 2020 Johnson County Redevelopment Commission annual report.
Like,
a motion from John Myers, a second from Ron Deere. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. That is accepted. Thank you. Under old and new business, we have the creation of an ad hoc committee regarding the American Rescue Plan. So this is, as you probably have read or have received information about, Johnson County government, Johnson County will receive about $30.7 million from the American Rescue Plan. I want to thank Pam and the auditor's office for getting some information out early on that. Something that our recently created bylaws or rules call for is an ad hoc committee, which would allow us to meet with 3 or less number of the council members, so long as we have certain parameters met. In conversation with Commissioner Baird last week, it would appear that 2 or more commissioners will likely want to be on such a committee, which thereby recalls for public meetings. So I thought we might just have 2 to 3 of us volunteer. on that, but I think if we're going to be moving towards public meetings in order to address the open door policy at the commissioner level, we could basically have a joint special meeting and any or all of us could attend and participate in that committee, thereby maybe not making it an ad hoc committee, but that was determined after I had asked for this to be on the agenda. So
Well, number one, I'd like to volunteer. I do have some questions as we form the committee. I would suggest that to not make it so laborious of people coming in and out, that we should have appointed members from or that choose to volunteer, however many might choose to volunteer, but rather than having some of us make one meeting and others not make it, that we have consistency of committee members. And to still meet all the open door laws and everything else that are required, and whatever that number would be, whether it's 3 or 4 or 2, but all of this 7 coming in and out, not hearing prior discussions and everything else. That was one suggestion I had, and the other is that it appears, and I've been doing quite a bit of reading about this and reading the backstories from the Indiana Association of Counties, and and I've watched their seminars and everything that's going on about this, and trying to find out who knows what we can actually do with it. There are some communities that are already moving forward, and I know there are 3 or 4 broad categories: broadband, transportation, water, et cetera, et cetera. But do we have anyone that we know is going to be our in-house knowledge person on this? Is it our attorney or what?
Assistant County Attorney Zach Lang and I will take the lead on drafting the commissioner's ordinance that we have to have in place to create the fund for somewhere for these monies to go. So we'll start there. Otherwise, we're prepared to assist the auditor's office however we can with the guidance from the Department of Treasury, State Board of Accounts, to make sure that the money is being spent appropriately.
I guess what I'm looking for is someone other than those of us who are the elected officials that would be on a committee, someone we can say, can we do this? Can't we do that? What can we use it for? What can't we use it for? And then an understanding that I have, and I didn't realize when I first read it, I don't want to belabor it, but I thought it was, we got like 4 years, if I understand. This isn't something we have to make a decision, but we're receiving disbursements in May or June, is that correct? So that there will be opportunities for it to be allocated, decided upon and allocated quicker than we'll be able to come up with suggestions of how it should be. And if I understood correctly, what you just said was the commissioner's role, other than being on a committee, and our role is that the committee would solicit suggestions of how that might be spent. The commissioners have to pass an ordinance to accept it. And then the committee would make recommendations to the council on how to spend it. Is that?
I think the very first step is to create the fund, which is commissioner's ordinance. So that will be the next step that we take on a county level, so that we have somewhere to put the money.
Put the money, right.
Right?
Right.
As far as decisions about spending it, that's something I think Rob and Brian talked together about, and how we would proceed from there. If you want to come up with a committee and talk about what the parameters for that committee might be, with idea that at least 2 commissioners may participate, then that's a policy decision. You're fine to make it. As we get more guidance from our state counterparts and from the Department of Treasury, we'll be able to be more informed about who plays what role. And I anticipate it'll be similar to CARES Act. I think everyone is ready to move forward as a county, so we want to all be on board with it.
Okay, so I guess the question I'm asking, I'm a process person, is that the committee would receive input and make suggestions to whom? Ourselves?
Well, no, the committee wouldn't have any power to act. It's most likely going to be 2 commissioners.
And Mr. President, as I understand, kind of moving away from the committee and going to a public meeting.
In light of that conversation with Commissioner Baird, yes, if by to comply with the open door policy, the commissioners are going to meet with respect to the American Rescue Plan, then I would not want to exclude anybody on this council that would otherwise want to participate. If there are 3 or fewer members of council that would like to participate, then we could then inform, just basically designate that, as I see it, as an ad hoc committee, who would then join with the commissioners whenever they would meet. Is how I would. But Ron,
Yeah, I get that. I guess what I'm saying is that whatever this group is, in the end, someone has to say, let's take, for example, if we were working on the water provision of it, someone has to say, we're going to accept input in some form to make some kind of a decision about $1 million that out of the 30 million suggested that perhaps should be spent on water resources. Someone then has to say to whomever might suggest that, here's how we want to receive your input. Then once that process is done, then someone, us, or the commissioners has to say, we're going to award X amount of dollars to this group, this, whatever. Who does that?
Well, remember, the council's role is to appropriate funds. So once we have the money, we've decided how we want to spend it, then the council's role is to appropriate the funds or not for that particular purpose.
Is this a one-time allotment of funds, or is this a series of payments over a period of a year, or?
It's gonna be multiple
4 years.
disbursements, right?
two payments. One will be in May 2021, the other will be in May of 2022. You have 4 years to, I don't know if it's to spend it down or to encumber. Again, maybe not enough information out there yet.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Nope. I'm just wrapping up that real quick. It's a commissioner's ordinance, Ron, so maybe to your point.
Well, the
just
commissioner's
wait-
ordinance
The commissioner's ordinance establishes the fund, thereby they have control of the fund. If we appropriate money out of the fund at the request of most likely the commissioners, what I'm hopeful for and striving for here is to have part of that early on conversation through either an ad hoc committee of our council or our council at large. I'm making sure, or at least making efforts that we have a seat at the table to understand the needs, not just the body that appropriates the money. So that is what is going on here today. We do not know the process. There's callback provisions, there's liability if money is misappropriated. There's a lot to get our arms around. I'm simply trying to, understanding it's a commissioner's ordinance, make sure, or at least ask that members of this council participate in the process. That's all that I'm doing tonight.
And I appreciate that. I guess what I was trying to understand. Commissioner's ordinance is not only to receive the funds, that there will be multiple ordinances of how to suggest it should be
Not
allocated.
necessarily ordinances, no. No.
Once the ordinance creates the fund, no different than the clerk's perpetuation fund, whatever that number is, I have a fund number. It's non-reverting, it's not general fund. We just appropriate out of it based on recommendations or requests made of that body to this body.
I think it would be also nice if we include maybe 1 or 2 people from the community to be on the advisory. I mean, people who are specialists in their areas. That could give input, just as a community gesture. And, I mean, we've got lots of, we've got Camp Atterbury, we've got lots of special, unique areas of our county, and that we don't often hear from. But I think it would be a nice gesture to invite some people in. Maybe just not that many, just a few.
It's a good comment. Thank you, Melinda. I take that to the extent I can, take that under any kind of advisement. My role is to try to work alongside the commissioners in this with dialogue and communication, and I will certainly relay that back to them.
Or would you plan on having a decision?
I don't know. I was, again, before my conversation with Mr. Baird, this was to get a feel if only 2 people wanted to participate, then we would go ahead and, as a council, nominate those 2 people to be our representative on that particular committee. If there was more than 4 or more, then it was going to create a different challenge to comply with open door policy, and I would try to work those logistics out with county attorney and the commissioners. So today was to get a feel, because we're gonna get our money about the same time we meet next May, give or take, at our next regular scheduled meeting, and then the clock starts ticking. So we're gonna have to make some very, I believe, very fast decisions on expenditure of monies and understand the process. So I think it'll be sooner rather than later, but I don't have a timeline.
Mr. President, so the ad hoc committee wouldn't be able to make any decision, but they would be able to field all the information needed to be able to present to this body later, correct? For those decisions.
I don't know about the latter part of that. I view this as it's the commissioner's ordinance. They're by, yeah, but I think my understanding is they want to hear from us. They would like to appreciate our dialogue and interaction. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish today. I can't make any commitment beyond that.
Do we know, Commissioner, do we know of any other communities that have formed what we're talking about?
Be nice. Yeah, well, it's John Scott, Commissioner. Great dialogue you guys are having on all this info. This is a huge decision for everybody in the county. It's 30.7, is that what it is? Correct, $1 million. I mean, I know each commissioner is probably going to get a different answer or some kind of different days. I know you talked to Brian. I think for the beginning of this, I would like to see a joint meeting between the full bodies and discuss this in a public meeting and hash it out there and figure out how we need to move forward from that point. If you don't, I mean, the commissioner, I think all three of us will sit on this committee because it's very important. I don't think two can sit and one can't. So I think a joint meeting between both the council and the commissioners first out of the box to actually figure this out and put a direction forward, because we really want your input. I do. I want your input on this. I don't think it needs to be just solely with us three. So that's what I would like to see. So, and I don't know of any communities so far that have, I think they're all probably doing the same thing with it.
Yeah, does anybody know of any other town, do you know?
Well, I will just tell you, it comes off across the auditor's listserv with the other 91 counties on a regular basis. Everyone is grabbing it. What are you doing? How are you moving forward? And I know all the financial advisors are saying, don't make any decisions to spend this money till you make sure what the strings attached are, because there will be strings. So I think they're just like Mr. Wall said, move forward slowly, get everybody on the same page. But no, I don't think anyone, I think we're probably leading edge on it. I don't think anyone has moved forward to my knowledge.
So will we know what these strings attached are before we get the money?
I would hope. It's going to take a lot of research. I think they just do this money out there, and now they're going to make the rules on how you can spend it. So I don't think anybody has a clear-cut answer on that right now.
If it's anything like the PPP loan or a program, you will not know the strings attached until the light rolls out. I'm tongue in cheek, but I mean, the money is scheduled by statute, I think by law, to come out 60 days after President Biden signed it. So that date is hard, whether the program rules are known and callbacks and stuff or not, I don't know that that'll be determined.
Now, everything that I read on Association of Counties, councils, has indicated that that's all a step. But one of the steps that they're all struggling with is how does someone ask to be, not someone, a group, whatever it is, whether it's transportation or water or sewers or roads or private, public, the ones that are allowed to apply, not the strings attached, but how do they even get on in front of someone to ask for consideration, which is part of what this committee would be working with fairly quickly. That your understanding?
That's my understanding.
So, you know, I want some. Now, how do you ask for it? Yeah. And then once you receive that all the particular parameters have been met, I want some. I'm saying I mean an organization or a project. I want some of this. Here's how you ask for it. Someone approves that to be allocated to it, and the rules say, here's how you have to spend it, report it. And what we're involved with, as I understand, Chairman suggesting, and I wholly endorse, is that we all work together to figure out how to tell people, the organization, the projects to ask for it. And then that gives you what you're telling me is you then have the guidance to say, we want to give X $1 million, we want to give Y $2 million. We then have to say, I'm trying to understand our responsibility. We then have to say, based on the recommendations of the commissioner, that is acceptable. Is that what our role will be other than the committee? Is that what our role?
I don't think so. Yeah.
You know what?
Or,
If we're successful, we are gonna create a committee or come up with rules by which third parties or outside entities could request a portion of these funds. We don't know what the rules up here are, right? From the feds, as far as that possibility. We don't know if that's on the table. If it is, then we have to create our own rules. So we, you know what I mean? We're a little bit ahead of ourselves, I think. Just
Tell me how much money it is again that we're getting.
30.7 million.
30.7 million.
In May, 30.7 million or 30.7.
Now, Apple come this year, Apple come next year.
Okay, total of 30.7 million.
Yes. And some of that can be used for defined as short falls as a result of the pandemic, which we all can pretty much understand that. But it's the other places of how do you allocate a certain portion to transportation or a certain portion to broadband or whatever. Correct.
My suggestion would be to set it aside, hold it for right now and figure this out before you go spending and have to recoup this money back somehow.
Well, yeah,
You spent it wrongly. So it's going to be, I would say, well, a year or plus before we ever do anything with any money, because you've got to learn what you can and can't do. And I don't want to go get it on May and spend it in June. That's not, I don't think that's the proper thing to do. So I think it's going to have to be a wait and see that you'll get your first installment, put it away. And I would assume that would be their prerogative to put it into an account.
I think actually your ordinance.
Will.
So we'll put it in a fund, commission ordinance. And then we gotta make a distinction too of receiving the money and spending it. So we can receive it and we're fine, as long as we hold it and don't spend it inappropriately. So that's that second step that we have to take before we find ourselves in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah,
Are we as clear as mud?
clear as mud. It's, man. Yeah, I believe, thank you, Kevin, for expressing your desire and how you'd like to see the vision to meet at least one meeting in a joint session. I think that's perfect. And then from there, we can decide what next steps are.
Right, some parameters.
Yes.
What we're gonna do.
Thank you.
Forward with that.
Yeah. Question was asked that it may be too early to know. When we receive the funds, may we invest those funds? Treasurer is ideal to answer that question as our financial chief financial.
Our
Yes.
chief investment
Yes.
officer.
Remember your title on that part.
Hi, Michelle Ann Graves, Johnson County Treasurer. And I think this just goes to show another example of, yes, we know the money's coming, but the rules have not been determined. So I actually reached out to the DLGF, I believe it was at Fred. Yes, thank you. And the DLGF doesn't know if we're allowed to earn interest on this money yet. There are some stipulations with grants, as the auditor's office can attest to. The county cannot earn money on or earn interest on the money that they have received through this grant. So even that rule hasn't been determined yet. I've been promised that we'll know soon. If it is the case that we can't earn interest on this money won't
be allowed to be commingled with the rest of county funds. It'll have to have a separate bank account in addition to its fund that's coming from the commissioners. And it will sit and not earn interest if that's what the rules are going to be, but they just don't know yet.
Thank you.
So that to wrap up what you're suggesting, Rob, is that perhaps, I mean, it isn't gonna be just one meeting or a commitment of one meeting, it's the potential of being involved in multiple efforts over a long period of time. And perhaps wouldn't be inappropriate for there to be a special joint meeting of the council and the commissioners to suggest how we're going to move forward, for lack of a better word, because we're certainly not going to be able to start the process of saying, here's how this organization, here's how this activity, or here's the shortfall that we're going to meet in this particular fund. And we're not going to get all that done in the meeting. But if we had an organizational meeting suggesting how we work together to try to move forward, maybe we'll have more answers by that. And then a committee perhaps might follow that. Would that be an appropriate?
I think the first step is, as Commissioner Walls, his vision, which I share, is one joint special meeting, and we define it from that point on. So the creation of an ad hoc committee is momentarily suspended in hopes for this joint special meeting at a soon to be determined date and time. Woo! All right. So that concludes tonight's agenda. Anything else for the greater good?
Well, we have to have a meeting, set meeting.
We probably will, most likely. On May 12th or whenever our next scheduled meeting, we'll try to get something on the calendar, at least proposed dates and times. Thank you. Good dialogue, good stuff. That concludes tonight's agenda. So got a motion from Pete, second from Jim. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.